AITA for not agreeing to let my husband have a baby w/another woman. Throwaway account. I, 32F, am married to great man James, 36, fake name, who was a sperm donor to his friend Miranda, 35F, and her wife Vivian, 30F, and they have a sweet little boy, and he is a very involved uncle. This all started before I was in the picture, and when I first started dating James it felt a little weird at times, but grew to accept it, because not all families are the same. Also, Miranda and Vivian are great. James and I have been married for a while, and trying for a baby. Because of the pandemic we decided to not actively try again until next year, but are still not using protection. Recently Miranda approached James about being a donor again. He said that he needed to think about it and consulted me, and to be honest I told him I was uncomfortable with the idea. Like I said, Miranda and Vivian's son was already in the picture before I came around, so I know I needed to accept it or leave, but now that I'm his wife and trying to conceive myself I just don't think I can ever handle seeing another woman carry his baby. James understood my stance and suggested Miranda and Vivian find another donor or adopt. They refused, saying that they wanted their son to have a sibling that was related him, and this time Vivian wanted to experience giving birth. James still refused, saying that he couldn't do it again. He tried to take all the blame, but I guess they were able to put 2 and 2 together and started asking me why I was so against them having a bigger family. I explained my reasons, and they said that I was being unreasonable and how my lack of pregnancy wasn't their fault. Since then Miranda and Vivian have restricted access to their son, and I know that it's starting to take a toll on James and his family, because their son is technically the only grandchild. I know that my reasons are purely selfish, but am I really in the wrong here? NTA. Vivian and Miranda are being incredibly unreasonable by 1. Not respecting your feelings on the situation when you are literally his wife. 2. Insisting that James has to be the donor when adoption or another donor are perfectly viable options. If having the kids be genetically half related is so important to them, they should brought it up with James before the first kid, or just have Miranda carry again. I'm assuming James did this as a courtesy for a friend, and now they feel as if they have some sort of entitlement to his sperm. And 3. Worst of all, using their ducking son as a chess piece against James and his family, who have an established bond with him, in order to manipulate him into donating again. They are willing to isolate their child from their biological family as a manipulative tactic, but are hell-bent on having their kids be related. I'm really not seeing their logic here, and they've proved themselves to be people you probably won't want in your life. I think you made the right choice here. NTA. Something like this needs to have the approval of both partners in the marriage. Your husband's friends don't get to demand you be okay with this, no matter their reason. They're the assholes for basically using their son as a bargaining chip in all this, and it's frankly disgusting. Edit. Wow. My first gold. Thank you, kind stranger. I would never willingly aid people who use children as weapons to have more children. How they're behaving when they are not getting what they want speaks volumes. NTA. If this is how they act when they don't get their way, they shouldn't be having a second child. They lashed out at you, and now they've decided to hurt not only your husband and his family, but their son as well. They aren't paying attention to what their son needs, and have chosen to use him as a pawn to get another child. It's vile. NTA. You are absolutely allowed to be uncomfortable with the situation, and James is well within his right to say no for any reason. They are tar, but only for restricting access to the child out of spite, instead of gracefully accepting the answer. This only serves to deprive the child of more people who love him. NTA at all. I can't imagine how hard it would be watching another woman carry your husband's baby when you are having a hard time conceiving. The idea the kid has to have James' DNA is complete crap, and they have no right to James' sperm. NTA for having boundaries and knowing where your comfort is. It's a complicated arrangement. A friend has Ireland. It's been tricky at times. They suck for weaponizing access to the child, providing a reason to not want to be further involved. They're disrupting the existing child's family structure over a disagreement that needs to be sorted out. I hope there is a relationship counselor involved to help the non-traditional family navigate things. Their actions with the child makes me think they're riced. Open bracket. NTA. This one is really hard. Imo. I get where you're coming from. And I don't think your feelings are invalid by any means. I'm imagining a worst case scenario where, God forbid, you find you can't get pregnant, and then you have two women actively present in your life who have both had no trouble getting pregnant with your husband's sperm. If I was in that position, I wouldn't be able to take it. I'd grow resentful of my husband and of the two women. I'd feel like my body failed me. That's a massive what if. But it would be hard enough to handle with the one son already existing, let alone another newer one that's born around the time you thought your own child would have been born. They're acting entitled to your husband's semen, which is a problem in and of itself. It was one thing to ask when he was a single guy, but he's married now. Decisions are made through the partnership. Your feelings on the subject do matter whether they like it or not. If they want their sons to be related so badly, then it's well within their power to give their next son the same mom. Arguably their reasons are just as selfish. Vivian wants to experience birth, so that means your feelings don't matter? No, that's not how that works. And them holding their son hostage from your husband's parents is just mean-spirited and petty. That's not your fault. And honestly, it's a red flag, because if something happens with your own future kids down the line, where they get close with their biological half-siblings, who's to say they won't go no contact just to get you and your husband to do something you're not comfortable with? Their actions offers alone. Your husband is on your side. Your feelings make sense. That they threw it in your face, that it's not their fault you're not pregnant is ducking bullshit. NTA. This is an awkward situation, only because Miranda and Vivian made it one. It's perfectly fine for you to be uncomfortable with your husband being a donor again. And they are being ours about this. It seems like they are trying to force your husband's hand in the name of the kid having a sibling by blood. But that matters less than having a family that cares. They can adopt or get another donor. NTA. However, I think your husband made a mistake accepting to be a donor and still having a active involvement with the child with his family. They shouldn't be considering that child their grandchild because they aren't. Here's a donor, that's it. Info. What did James himself want? Before asking you, would you be upset if he still had sperm in a sperm bank and they were using that? I can see your side of things. But as a woman in a relationship with another woman who is looking into having kids, I can also see this. They are ours for behaving like they have and restricting access to their kiddo. But if James previously said he would consider giving sperm again, I can understand how they would have gotten their hopes up. Do you think this is something you could work through? NTA. Your feelings are valid. Your husband committed to one child/donation, not multiple. Nor did he agree to put his life on hold so they can have the family of their dreams. They need to respect you two as a couple as you learn to respect them and their family. Hopefully with time and once you conceive, everyone involved will accept your decision and all kids can have a close relationship. NTA. It sounds like you had a really valid concern, spoke about it with your husband, and both of you decided that it would be a bad idea for him to donate sperm again. They should respect his bodily autonomy and accept his answer with grace. James understood my stance and suggested Miranda and Vivian find another donor or adopt. They refused, saying that they wanted their son to have a sibling that was related to him, and this time Vivian wanted to experience giving birth. I'm sorry, what now? Question mark? The man said no, and they refused to accept his answer. Question mark? NTA. I haven't seen anyone mention this. I may be wrong, but if they want the child to be biologically related to their other child, but want Vivian to carry it this time, they can use a sperm donor with Miranda's egg and use Vivian essentially like a surrogate. Having your husband donate the sperm is not the only way. It's just the cheapest and most convenient. Assuming the reason they asked your husband in the first place instead of a sperm bank was to ensure they could have the same donor twice, whether or not they explained that to your husband is a different situation. They have to understand that it was never a guarantee that would happen. There are many scenarios he could change his mind other than this one. He cold found having a child that's biologically his, but not actually his, very uncomfortable, and decided he didn't want to do it again or even extremely He cold died before they decided to have another baby. Op is definitely NTA. Miranda and Vivian are not tar for being upset that he has changed his mind, but definitely tar for firstly going out their way to express their anger to you after your husband said it was his decision, and secondly, using the child as a weapon. I thought of this, and I think the reason is that Vivian also wants S biological child, otherwise it could be Miranda Seg and she can carry. NTA. Whatsoever. It's perfectly fine and completely understandable for you to be uncomfortable with this. They're big girls and they can find a new donor like adults instead of acting like children by restricting access out of spite. NTA Opus. They have no right to dictate to you or James. They should be grateful he's helped once. This behavior is a red flag, and using the existing child as a bargaining tool is appalling. The ashlery is not at your and James's end. I know that it's starting to take a toll on James and his family, because their son is technically the only grandchild. Info. Why is James' family so involved? I'm assuming his parents, siblings, etc. They have no right to Vivian and Miranda's kid, even if he's biologically related to them. NTA for the rest. Info. When you say, since then Miranda and Vivian have restricted access to their son, people are interpreting this as being retaliatory. Is that your impression? Have they cut off access/visits 100%? While I vote NTA in any case, because they're throwing infertility in your face is a /whole behavior. It is possible that, while they're coming to terms with not having a BO sibling possibility, they just need some space. NTA. You are now his wife and both partners should be okay with this. I don't get their hang up about the child having a sibling has related to. They are a non-traditional family. Who cares if the children are blood related? If they used an unknown donor, the likelihood of using the same donor for a second child is pretty low. They need to grow up and act like adults and accept James' answer. After all, without him, they wouldn't have their little boy. Absolutely NTA. Miranda and Vivian are the assholes in this situation. They are not entitled to having James as a sperm donor. You weren't an asshole. Just a bit. Like I don't get it completely, but you have a right to feel how you feel, and I don't have to get it. I would have no issue with my husband being a sperm donor to friends, but I can kinda see where the discomfort lies. I digress. That's not important lol. Close bracket. Vivian and Miranda became the assholes as soon as they started harassing you about why you didn't want them having a bigger family. You don't owe them an explanation any more than they owe you one about why they can't just adopt instead of needing to experience birth. NTA. NTA. You're not selfish and you're not stopping them from having a bigger family. Miranda can get a donor to make sure the children are related. The way they're punishing James proves he made the right choice to say no. Can James get the court to force visitation? Info. How would you feel about offering to let James be their donor again after you conceive, whenever that be? NTA. Even if you weren't also trying to conceive right now, they are allowed to ask. He is allowed to say no. Plus, like someone else said, they could have genetically related children if Miranda carried the baby again. Life doesn't always go as you planned. So, if they really want another child so badly, they have options. Just not the exact options they want. Too bad. Your feelings are valid and important in this situation. Period. Thankfully your husband sounds great and gets this. NTA. Your lack of pregnancy may not be their fault, but certainly their lack of sperm isn't your James' fault. NTA. Your husband did a great thing for them, and they were obviously good friends. But they do not have any right to his sperm, and beyond simply requesting it, they should not have taken it further or at least waited. They are both A's for distancing their son from his biological father after allowing them to build a relationship, and for using him as an emotional chess piece just because your husband won't give them another child at this moment. Circumstances might possibly change when you have your own child, but it's neither here nor there. They should have taken the refusal with grace. It is completely disrespectful that they feel entitled to his sperm, and they need to be aware of that. NTA. What happens when they want a third or fourth child? They're already manipulating the situation by restricting access to the one child. I would not want to have more of the same. Stand your ground. Now, people are allowed to be uncomfortable and have boundaries, but they can also ask without being called an asshole. If they are hurt and need space, I don't think it's an asshole move either. Now if they keep harassing you and not taking no for any answer, then they're being assholes. But technically your husband and his family aren't entitled to any visits either, if he is just the donor. Esh. Hate me for my opinion. But in my opinion you suck. Just as much as Vivian and Miranda. Yes, they should have accepted the no and left it there. That they're keeping away their kid from James is super childish and completely wrong. But what I don't understand is why you are uncomfortable with it. It's not that he has an intimate moment with her and that they'll share the bedroom. He just drops off a little bit of his semen and a doctor inserts it in Vivian. This is why I will not use donor sperm of someone I know. When my wife and I decide to try for a baby, we'll be purchasing some random sperm from a bank. You are absolutely NTA. They should have known that their sperm source would likely change when he got married and tried for his own family. Your lack of pregnancy is not their fault. Neither is their lack of pregnancy your fault. You aren't chess pieces they can move around at their convenience. You are people trying to start your own family. You have the right to have feelings and the right to ask your husband to prioritize your feelings over this. NTA. Your reasons are not purely selfish. Theirs are. This is so ducking ridiculous. They aren't entitled to your husband's sperm. What the hell is wrong with people? Exclamation mark. Info. Do you think your husband would be having a baby with another woman? Because if you do understand that your husband would be a donor and not a father, if you do understand that he'd sign his parental rights away, then you are very misleading in your title and you are actively trying to emotionally influence your audience. Honestly, AITA, you have the right not to want to do it, but you admit it's purely selfish. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.